Right at this time, looks like we have some time left for some questions you left in the comments. If we don't answer your question, we'll reply after the event. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Bob Kistler. So Bob, do we have any questions for our team here? Bob Kistler, are you on mute or camera or otherwise?
I'm now unmuted.
Here you are. Thanks, Bob.
And I will go on cameras. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Before we jump into a few questions, since you ended with how can people help, this is a direct appeal from the bill's author, Representative Frank Ryan. As Ryan Petruccio already touched on, contact your senator and your representative, but he also asked that you contact committee leaders, and I'm going to share them right now to the screen. Give me a second to share my screen, and I'll scan down. So here they are. Hope you can see them. This will be part of the video, so I won't stay here too long. At any point, you can go back and replay the video and copy it down. But these are the leaders of the various committees, along with their email and phone number. So please contact each one of them and ask them to, move this bill, HB 13, through each of their committees as quickly as possible. Thank you. Now to the first question. Got a question here. This effort's been going on for two decades. What is different about this bill? So I'm going to direct this question to Mike Fogarty, since he's been around with this effort for about 2 decades. So, Mike, if you want to take that question, we'd be appreciative.
Okay, hang on. Got some notes here just to. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. The House Bill 13 is not messing around, as the funding crisis is in serious trouble. If the $40 billion teacher's pension deficit was divided equally among every school district in Pennsylvania, each would be $80 million in debt. It's not divided equally. My district is the 63rd largest, and a recent audit by the Auditor General put its share of the pension debt at $140 million. The district next door to me is in the top 15 size-wise and owes $280 million. This debt was not the fault of the districts, but is the district's responsibility alone to pay, says the state. Our properties are the collateral in this debt. If districts go bankrupt or into receivership,
get feedback.
If districts go bankrupt or into receivership by state law, the remaining districts are responsible to split and absorb the pension debt. If a series of districts equal to the size of Philadelphia, or if Philadelphia itself were to go bankrupt, it would increase everybody's property taxes by 15% in the state. We've already had some districts that are going bankrupt. For illustration only, if you added another 50, you could add another 50 million per district for state government pension debt, if that happened to be divided by the districts, just to give you a comparison. So we're in some real difficulty. Under House Bill 13, school districts must operate within an assigned budget that only increases naturally by inflation with no tax increases. School administrations will be trained in a new way of thinking, and $500 million over 2 years will be available to provide loans to help them through this transition period. School boards are going to have to make some tough decisions, as the state provided funding may not be as generous for many in the future. The state is not looking so good financially itself, with its own huge $25 billion pension deficit and interest of 7% or $1.75 billion a year. It has a huge number of infrastructure projects, the need for $4 billion more to be able to sustain or subsidize senior care centers. If the judge on the current fair funding lawsuit, which we're waiting on, suddenly rules and orders that the state has to come up with billions more to flatten the $460 to $14,000 per pupil difference on how many different school districts are treated by the state, where does that money come from? Districts on the high end of state funding with very low school taxes may find the state cannot afford to be as generous over time as that large difference is flattened out. The state is not likely to be pulling the medical bed out from under grandma in a senior care center and tell her to go live with the kids or to be monitored 24 hours a day with a room of her own and nursing care. Can they be okay with letting a few more bridges fall down? Probably not. So if property tax elimination was not important to you before, it may no longer be possible when you really find out that you really need it. The next recession, and we are all worried about that, could put the possibility of elimination out of reach forever. This could be the consequence of kicking the can down the road for 18 years, and eventually the can gets kicked off the cliff and the game is over. Thank you.
Through all committees. I can say yes, but I don't understand the order of committees. Somebody here probably does. I know appropriations is the first committee it's got to clear. Anybody want to volunteer to answer that? Nobody know the order of committees?
I don't know the order, but I know it's in the finance committee. That's where I think that's where it starts. I think it could actually be voted out of there and go to the floor if the House leader allows it to come to the floor.
Yes, and once it gets to the floor, then it will be debated there, and hopefully no major changes made, and then it could go to a vote if the House Majority Leader so decides.
Along with that, we made a plea for you all to contact your senator representatives and the committee leaders. Any one of those committee leaders can short circuit this bill just by saying no. Everybody else on that committee could want it to move forward, but if the leader of that committee doesn't want it to move, it's not moving. So in many ways, this bill is up to you folks to get it passed. All right, we got another question here. Can you please explain the pension obligation? Mike, you might be the best one there. I know that's near and dear to your heart.
I'm not sure what you mean by the pension obligation.
Well, that's how the question is worded. So why don't you just, you're an expert on the debt, understanding how everybody is legally obligated to every school district. If one school district goes bankrupt, every viewer is obligated to pay that.
Okay, I get
school
you.
District.
The pension was created by Act 9 of 2001. It basically improved the pension for the districts. They copied it off of the state of Illinois, which is now $317 billion in pension debt. So they're about 8 years ahead of us. So that's something to worry about if we keep following in their footsteps. But what happens is the pension is divided among the school districts, basically based on the percentage of salaries that they have in the system. So that's why your bigger school districts have a bigger share. If the school districts are required to pay, I think it's right now it's 35.29% to the Pennsylvania State Education Retirement System for the debt every year. And so that's a little more than 1/3 of your property tax payment every month, just to pay interest on the debt. The debt is growing at 7% a year, which the $16 billion is, if I recall, it was growing at around $5 billion a year, and that, in fact, that adds to the property taxes. It adds about $5 billion to the property taxes every year that we have to be careful of. They're paying that off to keep it down, but they're not really lowering the pension debt. The pension debt right now is $40 billion. That averages out to about 80 million per school district. And if a school district goes bankrupt, then the rest of the school districts must ensure that the pension is paid off, so the obligation is divvied up among all the other school districts. It's like if you go to dinner and you have a bunch of people sitting there, everybody gets up and leaves. The last guy gets to pay the whole check, and that's kind of what's happening here. So it's important that we basically stop the homes from being collateral for this huge debt obligation.
And Bob, let me add, to put it in simple terms, what a lot of people don't understand, that over 35%, that means any school district employee that's paid by the school district, the pension needs 35 cents for every dollar they make. I mean, when you say 35%, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking 35 cents on every dollar needs to be paid for the pension. So if they make $100, you got to pay $35. If they make $1,000, you got to pay $350. And I want to add that is one of the state's unfunded mandates. The state requires it to be paid, but the state doesn't come up with the money to pay that full amount. And when a school district has to do their budget every year, the unfunded mandates like the pension obligation is at the top of the list. That has to be looked at before anything about education is looked at, because the unfunded mandates have to be paid.
Okay, Mike Fogarty, I saw you raise your hand. Would you care to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the 35 or 35.29% back in 2000 was only 1.69%. It's going up every year, and it's now 35%. It's going to keep going up. Yeah, that's scary. It could be reaching 40% in the next few years.
Just to make a quick comment on this topic also, you often hear the word unfunded mandate. Well, what does that mean? It's a big misnomer. Probably unfunded mandate and hold harmless are the most misunderstood words in the whole property tax effort. So unfunded mandate simply means the state doesn't fund it. The taxpayers do. So the cost is passed along to the taxpayer. And there are continuing rising costs, and many of those costs are unfunded mandates, and that's in large why your property taxes are going up faster than inflation.
And the taxpayers that it's passed on to is the property owners.
Correct. This is, I'm putting this up on the screen here. This isn't really a question, but I think we need some clarification. This is the best hope yet for property tax reform. Unfortunately, I don't believe for a minute that teachers, the PSEA, school boards, or school districts are going to go along with this. Ungodly amounts of money and lobbying will be spent to defeat this. We as taxpayers can only hope this passes. Contact your rep and urge them to support this. I will say that Representative Ryan at this point says that the PSEA is neutral on this bill. And they were actually quite pleased when they found out that there's going to be a tax deduction associated with HB 13. We'll probably get into that in another part of this discussion, but if you make a contribution to any retirement plan, that contribution is going to be tax deductible in Pennsylvania if this bill passes, just like it is on the federal 1040. So, that's another tax savings here. Here's a quick question I think we can answer. And we already touched on this a lot, but do you think leadership can get behind this? again, we talked about how anybody in committee can short circuit it, and Frank Ryan has been heard on video that this bill is your bill as much as it is his. It's up to us. We must convince our legislators. We must knock on their doors and convince them this is the way to go. We must write to them. Now, here's a more detailed question. It says, I'm a small business owner and my business also pays school property taxes. What will this shift mean to my business? Anybody care to answer that one?
I will. That's a
Thank
great
you, Bob.
question. That's a great question because in Pennsylvania, 35% of taxes businesses pay are property taxes. And that's especially difficult for small businesses, which make up over 99% of businesses in Pennsylvania. Without this tax, businesses would be at least encouraged to stay here and even move here because their property tax overhead expenses would no longer challenge their profit margins. So the products would be more competitive. There's a lot of municipalities, my own here in Gettysburg included, that have offered businesses tax forgiveness for an interim period of time in order to move here. Ryan mentioned these are opportunity zones. They're actually formalized as Keystone Opportunity Zones. But they're only local. Eliminating this tax would effectively make the entire state a Keystone Opportunity Zone. So it would help to revitalize depressed areas and towns like the Poconos vacation areas that, because of high taxes and other expenses, are no longer competitive with other vacation areas. That would also create new jobs and encourage young people who are fleeing the state to stay here and not go elsewhere and find better opportunities. I also want to point out that this is not just good for businesses. It's also good for consumers. That's because businesses treat property taxes as a business expense. Just like they treat the electric bill or the payroll, all of these expenses are rolled up into the cost of the goods and services they sell to us, the consumers. So in reality, it's we, the consumers, not the businesses per se, that have already been paying this tax. Without it, prices will go down in reaction to competition. So I think, in summary, eliminating the school property taxes is a win-win-win for businesses, for consumers, and for the state. Mike? Did you want to jump in, Mike? You're muted.
Here we go. When school property taxes are eliminated, there'll be $16 billion extra dollars that remain in the pockets of taxpayers. Instead of sitting in an escrow account, probably used by a bank out of state. Consumers will be spending 90% of their money at local businesses in every community, possibly even purchasing IRAs. Moody's, award-renowned financial analytical firm, stated back in 2006 when he was vetting a very similar elimination bill that was in Pennsylvania, as well as the Independent Financial Office, or the IFO. Today, they both agree. This is going to lead to a small business boom and attract business startups or business expansion. Home improvement will no longer increase school property taxes, which is great for the builders and the guys who work on homes. It results in more job opportunities for the graduates of today to encourage them to live and work, and then they become taxpayers themselves in Pennsylvania and help pay for the schools. Much of the $16 billion, that's the extra $16 billion that's going to remain in the pockets each year, will continue to recirculate within the economy. After it's spent, it becomes salaries, which buys things, and then it just recirculates as it slowly depletes. And then next year, we're saving another $16 billion. So it really stimulates the economy and helps all businesses.
All right, here's a question. I keep reading on Facebook that the vast majority will realize a tax savings. How is this possible when it's a tax shift? We're trading one pot of money for an equal pot of another pot of equal money. So how is it a savings? Any takers?
Yeah, I'll take it. The main thing is it prevents them. Basically, we're paying for the schools, and the taxes will stay level for consumers, and it's only going to grow by the rate of inflation. Excuse me. So the schools have to stick to a particular budget, and when they stick to a particular budget, excuse me, let me get a drink of water here. The school budget, the school taxes, the income and the sales tax are pretty much going to be staying level if you're basically earning the same amount of money each year, or if you're on a senior's budget and you're pretty much keeping it flat. It's going to go up a little bit each year, obviously, because you're going to be making more money and this type of thing. But if you happen to lose your job, or you're injured and you have to change careers, it's going to adjust with your situation immediately, based on your current paycheck. Am I answering? What was the total question again?
The question is, we're moving to a sales and income tax model compared to a property tax model, yet they both have to raise the same amount of money. I keep reading that. I'm rephrasing the question, but yeah, I keep reading that there's the vast majority are going to realize a tax savings. How is that possible?
Okay. Let me make 2 points about that, if I may. One, the $16 billion does not have to be completely replaced with Pennsylvania revenue. In fact, by moving to sales taxes, in part, we begin to take advantage of sales taxes that come into the state from people that visit here. So really what we're doing is we're replacing $16 billion in solely Pennsylvania provided revenue for the schools with about $14.2 billion of Pennsylvania revenue. The other $1.8 billion comes to us from out-of-state sales tax receipts that we have never been able to apply to the school costs. The other thing is, and I want to make a very strong point about this, you could not find a more regressive, vile, despicable tax than the school property tax. Now, it might have made a lot of sense back in the 1700s when we taxed land, and land was the source of income. So in effect, back then, we were actually taxing income, but we've never stopped taxing property. And our property today really doesn't generate, except for businesses, our homes and so forth don't generate income. So what we're doing is moving from a very regressive tax to a tax that's not regressive. I won't call it progressive because it's not graduated, but it's not regressive. The more you make, the more ability you have to pay. The more you make, the more ability you have to spend, and therefore the more you will contribute to the sales tax revenue.
Okay.
Go ahead. And also, to go along with that, the reason why the school district will be fully funded is because inflation will take care of that. The more goods increase in cost, the more sales tax they'll be getting, and the more wages increase, the more income tax they'll be getting. And I also want to say that for those who say, well, don't tax my retirement, stop and think. If you're retired and you have a retirement, whether you're just living on Social Security or you have a pension, your retirement is taxed at this point because that money from your retirement is what you're using to pay your school property taxes. And the difference between HB 13 and the way it is now is school property taxes normally go up every year. With inflation controlling the increases in sales tax and income tax, it doesn't go up every year. You'll still see savings, and anybody that's not seeing any savings the first year, the way property taxes increase, it's not going to take long. Like Ryan said in the presentation at the beginning, it won't be long before you'll break even and then come to the plus side. And with this bill, 80% from day one of Pennsylvania property owners would benefit.
Let me echo something that Representative Ryan said in his introduction to this bill. He said that you can bet come the next recession, which is probably not too far around the corner, you're going to have your retirement income taxed anyway, given the fiscal condition of this state. And when that happens, you will still have property taxes.
Here's a comment we got that it really simplifies this whole thing down, and we've kind of all glazed over this. And it's very true. So one of the reasons why the vast majority are going to realize a tax savings is right now it's only property owners that are funding the bill. All of a sudden, that highly discriminated against class is going to be spread out to everybody across the state, and it's going to be a fair, just, and equal system. So it's just a dilution effect. It's common sense that there's going to be a dilution effect to some extent. Also, the taxation under HB 13 is going to be changed from state level to local level. Okay, that's huge because number one, people always cry for local control. Well, now you're going to have ultimate local control of your money because 100% of the sales and income tax collected are going right back to your school district. There's no more redistribution of money. And you want to see how bad redistribution is? I'm going to show you a little graph here. Give me a second to pull it up. And you should be seeing it. Okay, so what you're seeing is the school districts all across Pennsylvania and how they are funded as a percent of real estate taxes to the percent of full funding. Okay, so real estate taxes being your property tax. So in this chart, the red areas you can see in the upper right of the graph, that's percentage. So the percent goes from 0% up to 80%. There are two school districts in this data that had invalid data. That's why you see 0 in there. But anyhow, in the red, 80% of the funding for school districts is coming from the taxpayer, the homestead owner, the property owner. In these green areas, it can be as low as 10%. And that's all in large caused by hold harmless. There's a massive redistribution going on here. That all goes away. Local money stays local.
One other thing I'd want to add, not only does everybody pay taxes, but also everybody saves on this bill too. I mean, under the previous bill, under 76, while it was implied that renters would see some of the savings, it wasn't guaranteed. Under HB 13, it is guaranteed. So 40% of the people who rent will see a savings provided the rent's going up in the last 5 years because of property taxes that was passed on to them. It requires the landlords to pass the savings that they get proportionately through to the renters, which could save them, say, 15%, 10 to 15% a year.
Okay, here's a question. If our pension is taxed for school taxes, can the state come along and tax the pension checks and IRS for something else down the road? I guess I can start off by saying that, we're talking about HB 13 here, all right? No one can predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball.
Right. And one thing, too, is that all these people say the sales tax is going to go up in the future. The income tax is going to go up every year if we do this HB 13. But you have to remember that to raise a statewide tax, that has to go through the legislature, and it's not as easy as doing these every year raising the property tax, which is almost guaranteed through the Act 1 numbers. So, yeah, that was the point I wanted to make. It's much harder to raise these income and sales taxes on the state level.
The reason why we won't have to raise your income tax and your sales taxes because they increase intrinsically every year due to wage gains and product price increases. So the state has been running their entire budget, or most of it anyway, on this very concept. Sales tax has not increased since the 1960s, and personal income tax has not increased since 2004. Yet, our budget goes up every year. Certainly, the school budget, while big, is less than the overall state budget. If the state can run doing that model, schools can also.
Bob,
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I just want to add to that people have to remember if we get HB 13 passed and your pension is taxed as you draw it out, at least there's no way that school districts can take your house. If a recession comes, that's one of the first things that the state's going to look at. If they're going to look at the pensions, getting money from pensions, and it's better to have your pension as you draw it out taxed now at the amount that we're talking with HB 13, and not taking the chance of losing your home than it is to have your pension taxed and still have the chance of losing your home if HB 13 doesn't pass.
Very simple concept we all seem to overlook at times. I know I forget to mention this all the time, but HB 13 will give you true home ownership. Nobody owns their home. Even if your mortgage is paid off, you are renting it from your school district. Your mortgage is paid off and you run into rough times, that house can go up for tax sale and be sold for pennies on the dollar. And for full disclosure here, Ron Schnell is a school board member, so he's very aware of the issues that are affecting schools. Let's see here, more questions.
Let me put a comment in here. What people may not realize is that school districts, I know in Chester County, they haven't reassessed homes in 30 years, so your taxes are kind of outdated, or the properties. But the school districts have actually been going around and doing what's called spot assessments. Not just in Chester County. This is all over Pennsylvania, and they're not. I think a spot assessment is technically illegal, but when they call it a tax appeal, apparently somehow that's legal. And I know of an individual who basically his taxes, even though he just started his business 12 years ago, they came in and they basically reassessed, and his taxes could be going up quadruple of what it is now. And there's a number of other businesses in here that are doing that too. Out in Pittsburgh, they have what's called a newcomer tax. And the newcomer tax, somebody decides they're going to buy a home. They go in, they buy a home. They find out what their closing costs are going to be. They figure how much, if they're going to be able to afford it. They move in the home. They go to settlement, and then the school district comes along and says, the school district or the county or whatever comes along and says, okay, well, you're a newcomer. We're going to reassess your home now. And they'll add another $100,000 of cost to it and make them pay taxes based on that, which is ridiculous. I mean, I've heard of people losing brand new farms with their entire retirement savings, small farms where that type of thing has happened to them. That was about 5 years ago. So it's just, having the property taxes in place. It's almost like having eminent domain without legitimate compensation for it. They can literally almost push it right out of your home just for spite.
One other thing to add to that is due to the housing shortage that has been happening for quite a few years now, and it's even happening more because of COVID. People are paying, when they're buying a house, a lot of them are paying 20, 30, 40,000 or more over the asking price. And that house might have only been assessed at 50,000 or more under what it sells for, but when it's sold, the taxing authority uses that sale price to levy those taxes. So a lot of time, and I don't think all districts do it, but some districts do, and some counties do, go by the sale price of that home.
Here's a question that's, I think everybody has said this. What are the realistic odds of passing this? I find it amazing how this always comes up during an election year. I'm not going to argue with that statement. It's true. But what is different about this bill? I mean, I have my own thought I'll add, but does anybody else want to take the lead on it?
I'll comment on this. What everybody needs to realize is this is a bill that Representative Frank Ryan come out with and decided he is not running for re-election because he wants to spend all his time this year, instead of campaigning, he wants to get this bill passed. That's how passionate he is. And he also didn't take any co-sponsors and refuses to have any co-sponsors for this bill until that representative meets with him and fully understands the bill. There is too many legislators that vote on bills without even knowing what's in the bill. And Frank wants to make sure everybody that's going to be voting on this, every representative in the House, knows what's in this bill. So he's requesting every representative in the House, if they will, to meet with him so he can explain the entire bill to them. And then if they want to co-sponsor the bill, only then will he allow them to co-sponsor this bill. So this is different than a lot of other bills where it's used for fodder for an election year, especially not in Frank Ryan's case.
I'll add if you don't mind.
I have to agree that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I'll have to agree that seeing Frank Ryan, take the ball on this he's really working more than was worked on in previous efforts by some of the people involved. He's really taken ownership of it, and he's doing his best for it within the legislature, I think. So that speaks. That's a positive thing. It's not all pushed from the outside. It's not all pushed from people that are involved, for instance, citizen groups and things like that. It's actually some action. We have here a representative who's taken the ball and working on this. So I think that that is a very positive for this that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and if I'll jump in on that and just I'm going to address one of the other questions in chat. I'll just put it up here. So Mike, David Hauser, and also Robert Palmer, you kind of mentioned about the teachers unions and PSCA, right? That if you were here long enough in 2015, that there was a lot of for property owners, we want to get property tax eliminated at any cost, right? And it was a lot of anti-union, it doesn't matter, right? This is what we need for homeowners. But the difference this year is, Frank has gone around, Representative Ryan's gone around to different groups and had those difficult conversations, with the groups that in the past had opposed and said, look, I want you to understand the bill. I want you to understand the benefits of the bill. And hey, guess what? If I make this little tweak here, then guess what? The bill is more palatable, right? So in the past, we didn't really market it to schools, right? Because there are benefits to schools, but the main benefit is homeowners and business, property owners. But schools benefit because there's funding, replacement funding. It increases automatically every year. They have the rainy day savings cap removed. They have local funds, the $500 million emergency fund. The unfunded mandates can finally start to get addressed. There's all these things that benefit schools too, and we've really taken an opportunity to look at it from Representative Ryan's side and in his discussions, and then from our side, we want to make sure we bring everyone along, show everyone the benefits, that it does benefit not just people and homeowners, right? It benefits schools too. So I think that's the difference here. Is we couple tweaks in the bill, people that were against Senate Bill 76 in the past. A lot of different tweaks were made to make sure that it was those things are addressed. So if legislators said they were against certain things in the past, certain business groups were against it in the past, those have been corrected. So let's see this time that we fixed them, give them a chance to say, you know what, you finally got it right, let's do it this time. So I think there's a chance this time because we fixed the issues in the legislation, and then we've, as a property tax collaboration working group here, we're eager to get all the facts out for all the parties, stakeholders in this. So back to you, Bob Kistler.
I just want to add two real quick things there. I mean, we all hear how during election years, that's all legislators do is campaign. Well, I don't know how much of that was true. I can guarantee I heard it right from the horse's mouth. And that's one of the reasons Representative Ryan is retiring, which was already stated. But he flat out said he would have no time to work on this bill. He would be 100% of the time campaigning. And every other legislator out there is doing the same thing, and very little will get done this year. So he is working on this bill literally full time. The other thing I want to add about how the odds of getting this passed is there may be an ace up our sleeve here, and it's called the Pennsylvania School District funding lawsuit. Both sides have made their arguments. It's now the court is going to they've already announced it'll probably take months for them. The Commonwealth Court will take months for them to come up with a decision. But at some point they're going to rule, and it's already been stated by everybody out there that it's probably going to be appealed. Whoever loses will appeal to the Supreme Court. But just the fact that the Commonwealth Court took on this case after many times rejecting school funding lawsuits indicates they're not going to sit by the sideline and do nothing this time. They're going to do something. So they already came out and said that they're not going to specify a dollar amount, but they will throw it back on the legislators to fix. And this bill will be late in there, right here. It'll be the sweet spot for this bill to fill that void needed to fix the problem.
Yeah, let me squeak in here. I've been involved in a school property tax elimination fight since 2003 when my next door neighbor informed me of a 23.6% threatened tax increase after a 20% increase. Just to make it short, eventually we found a $21 million surplus after the administration got an F grade from an auditor general's, leading to a law change in Pennsylvania to protect taxpayers from the school boards ignoring right to know laws. But anyway, at that first meeting, there was an irate crowd after the school board meeting, and we formed a very large 1,800 member taxpayer group of concerned citizens, and I got involved with some leadership roles. And during the course of the next 2 years, we were involved at both the local and the state level on a variety of different measures, all involving school taxes. So it's quite an education. And most of the dirty work was done by a mere handful of us. But during that time, we heard about a representative called Sam Rohr's effort to eliminate school property taxes and use a sales and income tax to replace it. It's the first time we'd ever heard of anything like that. That bill was the version that really spearheaded the school property tax elimination movement that we've been on for the last 18 years. This bill today has made some improvements for current times, but this is about the 10th year that bill has, or 10th session, because it's every 2 years. There's a 2-year window on every bill that you have to have up until basically you have that 2-year window to get the bill passed until the next legislator is elected and sworn in to get passed. It then must start from scratch again. A long process is involved for the bills that can take almost a year, which involves introducing it, getting it to finance again, tweaking the bill, updating it, and then basically takes about a year, which is right about the time that the legislators are starting their campaigns for the primary. So that's why it always looks, especially if it's an involved bill, like a 300-page bill, it makes it look like it's an election day ploy. And I'll be honest with you, Some of them are. Some of them are written on napkins at lunch, and that's it. They're just trying to get behind something to make it look like they're actually behind something. But the public is very important in getting your state legislators to act well before the election. If you let this go and delay it until after the election, it actually kills the bill. If you make an election day a campaign plank, merely running on an elimination bill is a stall tactic, especially when you could be spending your time passing it now. So we certainly don't have time to wait for another 2 years. Sam Rohr's bill never got exposed in most of the central and western parts of Pennsylvania for 5 years. The only time it did is when he ran against Governor Corbett for the Republican primary, and he was campaigning all across Pennsylvania, and people finally figured out that this was happening. And since he did that, the Pennsylvania Taxpayers Cyber Coalition, which was made up of 14 taxpayer groups, it grew to 85 groups as a result. So now, since 2004, I've made it a habit myself to go around and talk to at least 5 to 10 people every time I go out, every time I leave my home, about the elimination bills and where to go to obtain more info. I've handed out flyers to cars entering developments. I've been at the airport when I happen to be there and passed it out to people sitting in seats waiting to take a flight, in parking lots and doctors' offices. My friend and I put up a billboard that stood for 6 years advertising the bill day and night, that over 25,000 people drove by daily. I've probably talked to 30,000 people personally in 18 years. Yet to this day, no one has ever approached me or any of my family to inform us of such a bill. They don't know me. They could walk up and tell me. They could put a flyer on my car. Nobody's ever done that. I can walk into a local giant food store today and talk to 10 people, and I'm lucky if one has even ever heard about any effort at all. Everybody's keeping the bill a secret. I would have never got involved if I didn't have a neighbor talk to me over the fence. The typical response I normally get when I talk to somebody is, "Wow, that really needs to pass. I really need it to pass personally. I hope you can get it passed. Good luck with that." I never get a, "What can I do to help?" On Facebook, even the announcement about this meeting, there were a lot of likes, but very few shares. There are 12 million people in Pennsylvania. Facebook limits you to about 50 posts of the same post. So to advertise a post, it limits you to about 50 per day on people's sites. If we take 12 million people in Pennsylvania and divide it by 50 contacts per day, that would take 240,000 days, or 657 years to get that word out. If you double a penny every day, they'll reach over 16 million pennies in 24 days. So everyone that's listening to this thing has to get more aggressive on getting this information about the bill out to the hundreds of friends that they have that we don't know. Ask them to do the same thing. Pass the information along, because if you're just waiting on a handful of us to contact everybody, it's never going to happen. It has to come from the public. The public has to get involved and get this information out. Don't just do it once. Share it a few times during the day, because these messages get buried under Facebook. You have 100 messages on top of it. You may not even see it. It's really important that you encourage people to get this word out.
And Mike, to answer Thomas's first question there, you pinpointed it right away. The odds of this passing, the more people that get involved, the more people that share, the more people that contact their legislators, the odds of this passing goes up. And that's what we need at this point. We need people to get involved. You don't have to get involved by going out on the street and picketing. Get on the phone, call your legislator's office, get on your email your legislator, and don't let up, and tell your friends and family. Share the Facebook pages, our website, tell them to check out the calculator.
Yeah, take your laptop over and show it to somebody in somebody who doesn't have internet. I've talked to a lot of seniors that do not have internet. I've talked to people who have computers at work, but they don't like to use them at home. My wife was that way. If we don't get this word out and people,
Yes.
I mean, most people are just saying they're only telling people or talking it to people who already are for the bill. It's not getting to people who've never heard about the bill.
Exactly.
All right.
Right. We need to bust out of the. We need to bust out of the bubble that we have for like Facebook. It needs to go beyond that. And, it's important that legislators hear from their constituents. We can call them and write to them and they'll say, well, who are you? What? You're not in my district. People have to talk to their own legislators so they can hear from people in their district. And, also like Mike was saying, the word of mouth, doing things beyond the internet. There are some flyers that someone printed up, informational cards. I know Mike Fogarty printed up one. Another fellow, Brian, who helped us in the past, printed up a sheet that you can distribute out to when you see somebody in the parking lot or in the supermarket checkout. You say, hey, like I always say, well, hey, how are your property taxes, right? So normal conversation starter. But those kind of contacts and spreading the word that way helps a lot, and especially contacting the legislator, even if you think they're not listening. Keep pounding them. And
they get one or two phone calls before they're going to vote, and that changes their mind. I mean, it's it's important. It's important. People have to do what's uncomfortable. At least talk to a couple people. Talk to somebody over the fence. Just say, "Did you hear about it?" And tell them about NoProp.Tax. At least get them to that site.
All right.
I see a comment there, Bob, where Barbara Walters, she contacts her representative and also her senator. Don't rely on just one time either. Keep after them. Keep bugging them, because especially like Henry said, if we contact them, they're going to say, are you my constituent? And when we have to say, no, we're not, they're not worried about us. They're worried about their constituents and the votes that they'll lose. So that's why the constituents need to contact their representatives.
I have a workaround for that. I've contacted representatives out of my district, and when they give me that answer, I say, well, I may not be able to vote against you, but I could sure campaign against you.
True.
And they listen. And that's why I'm in touch with not only my own representative, but the representative in each of the districts on either side of me.
Well, as you guys know, I've contacted every representative in the House on Facebook, and they all know our website now.
The one thing we do not want to do is make this a campaign issue, because once it becomes a campaign issue, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were putting your hand up out of your ear. Once it becomes a campaign issue, it becomes a plank on a campaign, and they're not going to do anything with it until after they get elected. And then the bill dies at the end of the year, and we have to start all over again. It'll be another year or so before anything can happen. We have to get all new state reps and teach all new people to come on board.
Unless you take action, it turns into a perpetual carrot like it's been for 20 years now.
We have to do something different. We got to have this passed before the end of the session. Really important. And the only way we're going to do that is if everybody in Pennsylvania knows about it, and everybody that's listening here, you have to help. We can't.
Okay, we got to move on here. We have questions flowing in, and I think we made it perfectly clear. Contact your representative, your senator, many times. Go out of your comfort zone. Do whatever you have to. Here's a quick comment. Where is it? Just throw up here. You don't get them on the phone. You usually get an intern. Leave the message with the intern, but There's an address to their office too. Drive to their office. Part of the problem of bills in the past has been lack of public support. There's been too much apathy out there. I know there's been some really strong supporters, but we need a lot more people helping.
I'll just add a quick comment on that one. Yeah, we know that the sales and income tax haven't changed for 50 years, and that legislators know that if they want to touch the sales and income tax to replace the property tax, they know that their constituents have to be behind it. So, the sales and income tax are a great source of revenue that it matches inflation. We don't have to raise it because it goes with inflation, but legislators don't want to touch it unless they know their constituents will support them and continue to get their votes. So, yeah.
I'm going to direct this question to Ron since he's a school board member. So this is especially pertinent now because if HB 13 passes, as we stated earlier, the income tax and the sales tax stays local. Local money stays local. So have at it, Ron.
Yeah. What would happen would be the sales and income tax increases would stay local. It would stay in the county that you live. The county would distribute it to the school districts in the county on a per student basis. In other words,
average daily attendance, right? Yeah.
Pardon me?
Average daily attendance.
Yeah, on the average daily attendance, and that's how it would be, because it wouldn't go to the state and get lost in the general fund. It would be used strictly for the schools.
And when you say county, Ron, you mean talking about the 2% sales tax, correct?
The 2% sales tax and the increase in income tax.
Okay. I think the income tax stays local. Isn't that in the per district?
It'll go right to the district. Yeah. Income tax will go to the district, and the sales tax, the 2% sales tax would go to the county where it's allocated back to the school district. So, yeah.
So there is some
receipt. Yep.
There is some direct local revenue in the form of that income tax.
And something along those lines, a district can take advantage of a mall that's in their county. I'll give you a good example. Norristown District is in Montgomery County. They're near the largest mall in the U.S. at least, anyway. The King of Prussia Mall, which is in the Upper Merion School District. I believe Norristown is a slightly bigger district, so they would actually get more sales tax that would come from that mall. And they're one of the districts that are part of this lawsuit because they're not getting enough funds. So you don't have to build a new mall in your district in order to be able to get the sales tax from it and wipe out some farmland, which may upset some farmers. It helps prevent urban crawl in that matter.
One added benefit to school districts, and Ryan touched on this briefly at his the beginning presentation, excuse me, would be that the rainy day funds that schools are allowed to have, there would be no cap on it. Currently, there's an 8% cap on it. So a school district can only, by the rules from the state, have 8% of their yearly budget or their yearly revenue in a rainy day fund. Now, I know there's going to be people saying, well, this school district has more. Yes, there are some school districts that go over the 8%, but the state can come in and require that to change. But with HB 13, they take that cap off. So if there's a major project, they can save up for that major project and not have to borrow so much money like they do now. which means that they're not going to be paying the interest on a loan.
Okay, here's a little bit of a different question we haven't touched on yet. Community blight is a huge problem in Pennsylvania. What would eliminating property taxes do to improve it? Specifically, how would HB 13 help the problem?
Well, right now, I think the property tax, we're seeing all these efforts about blight, the government and the municipalities stepping in to take care of blight. But, if there's no property taxes, that it would encourage investment in some of these blighted properties that take a lot to get going. And also, when you look at improvements, when a neighborhood's run down, their property taxes go up. If they own the best house in the neighborhood, they might be paying twice as much property tax, and not having the property tax can free up. And I know for me, if I didn't have the property taxes, I'd be doing a lot of different things here. I don't want to get reassessed for adding anything. We're not in the middle of the city. If I wanted to add, solar or something or make the house a little better, I'd have to pay an increased assessment. And when you're looking at blight, it's the same kind of thing. The investors now, if they want to invest in something that's falling apart, they don't have to worry about paying the property tax. And that these kind of breaks are given to businesses on a selective basis, but now it's more going to be more widespread. That's what I would say about the blight.
Mike,
anyone has anything to add?
Yeah, in our district, we had an old, lot of property that belonged to a steel mill that wasn't being used. I think Phoenixville had the same type of thing, old steel mills and everything, or old businesses, and there was just nothing being built there. It wasn't bringing in any income. It wasn't bringing any income taxes. It was just sitting there, and basically they would use what's called tax incentive financing to allow companies to come in there and put buildings up and cut the and they would be able to stay in that building provided it's an income producer and not have to pay property taxes for 20 years. But it basically added to the profits for the and produced jobs for the area. So HB 13 kind of does this by eliminating the property taxes. They can come in there and put buildings in, not have to worry about going through the political process or talking to the school board to get a special deal. They could even put in residential area there because people will be paying income taxes, which helps the school district. And some of these TIF areas, they would try to put in residential areas, which would bring kids to the school district, which would increase the expenses of the school district, but they wouldn't have any income or the sufficient income in order to take care of it. But yeah, it definitely would help to populate the blighted areas with more business or income producers.
here's a question. Where do we get the flyers? And may you hang it on your doors or windshields? We're just in the process of making these flyers. I like I say, Mike Fogarty has made something. Brian Fake did a great job. So the one that Brian Fake created, it is on, I believe, all of the Facebook property tax sites now. And it's on, you can find it under files if you cannot find it on the timeline, the timeline, because things get buried so quickly. But it is a PDF file, and it would be found under files, so you can always click files and go there.
I have basically a flyer that you could print out on a 4x6 card. You can buy them at the dollar store, and it's on an Excel spreadsheet. I just haven't figured out how to get it to you guys yet. We could put it on the site, and people could copy that and print off 100 cards, and they're fairly cheap. But it's not available for anybody to use yet. But we can work on getting that to the NoProp site.
Right, we can get that out there, and instead of money, we just ask that you use your own printer ink and paper, and that helps us because we don't take donations. We're going back to the model that David Baldinger wanted to do, and that's not get involved in finances at all, and everybody makes their own little cell of, promoting this with their own resources, and that's what we do in lieu of it.
There's also a possibility that if your state rep or state senator is for this bill, they may be able to supply some flyers and get them printed up for special events and everything that are promoting the bill in their area.
I would say the only place you wouldn't be allowed to put them is inside a mailbox, because that's a federal offense to put it inside the mailbox, and it doesn't have a stamp on it. But you can put it on the outside of mailboxes, in people's doors, on windshields at the mall.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think you can put it. I think legally they don't even want you to put it under the mailbox or on the mailbox.
You really can't get anywhere near the mailbox, and your opponents will be calling you out on that left and right. So
you can put it in a Glad bag with a stone or something and throw it on their driveway.
Not through their window, though.
Certain people.
Ryan, did you want to show this or not? Or will it be visible to most people?
No. I'll make sure it's in the comments later. Looks like it's maybe not proper here. We'll fix it up. So.
All right, let's see. Here's a question that just popped up. Let me throw it up there. I didn't even read it yet. Didn't screen it. Need more code enforcement officers. Many buildings are over 100 years old and aren't structurally sound. Foundations are cracked. Asbestos siding and lead paint still exist in homes throughout the Commonwealth. This question really doesn't deal with HB 13.
That's a municipality problem.
Say that again, Ron?
That's a municipality problem.
Right.
Municipalities control that.
Yeah, that's a municipal. Okay. Okay, here, Gordon Groff was nice enough to share this comment. So he's able to access the PDF file, which was a file that it's a flyer that has information about the bill. All right, that's about it for questions that have come in. I don't know if anybody else has anything they wish to talk about this evening.
Let me close it out.
Anything hot on anybody's mind?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and we'll continue to do this type of thing on Facebook and the various places. One thing that would be interesting is if somebody who's supporting us wants to give us some help with other social media. Maybe everybody's not on Facebook. Maybe a certain demographic like us guys, us older folks maybe, are on Facebook. But, if we can reach the other people on social media, if you have suggestions and can maybe help, that would be great.
Things like homeowners associations, your local community Facebook page. In order for me to use yours, I'd have to join it. That might be the only thing I need to talk about is property taxes, just to put a notice in there. But it would be nice to have someone that can link those things to your community pages, which may have 1,000 or so readers that are monitoring it.
There's a new question, Bob.
I can take that one. So Gordon, you asked whether we can view this after, and I'll take a moment here just to close out the stream here and answer the question at the same time. So yes, this will be a recording later, and I'll segue into saying yes, if you're watching this as a recording because you missed it, that means you need to check your groups, check the links that we post in the chat, in the comments here, in the description. Keep posted, and you will be notified every time we go live here. So we're especially grateful to those who ask questions, comments. So thank you very much. And of course, thanks gentlemen for the time this evening to talk about this issue. And until next time, spread the word, talk to your legislators, and thank you all.
Share the video.
Share the video. All right. Thanks. Have a good one, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.